even though we've got the connections with them, and even though we're sure that they're probably listening to me and you right now, they probably won't bat an eyelid, and they won't do anything about it because of their cowardice.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep the pressure on them, and at a certain point, like, they have to respond. Like, that basically we continue to do our work, put out the best arguments, put out the best videos and documentaries, and they will be forced to respond. And then, unlike them, we aren't afraid of a face-to-face confrontation, a face-to-face, battle of the words, battle of the minds. They're the ones who have been shrinking away from it. So inshallah,
Yes.
that will happen eventually, but we just have to do our work in the meantime. So going back to Peterson now, again, you mentioned you did an entire reaction with Abdullah Al-Andalusi on
Yeah.
the Netanyahu interview. What do you think the Muslim stance on Peterson should be now that he's kind of laid out his Zionist commitments on the table? Should it just be straight boycott? That's, full disclosure, that's what I advocate.
Well, I mean, I personally don't tell people what to do. I don't tell Muslims, watch this guy, don't watch this guy. I even don't cancel Muslims. I say, look, if you guys want to see this guy, if you want to watch him, you can, for all I care. But you should know that he's certainly working with, these guys, and it's established now. In fact, he put up a shorts just today, on his clips channel, where he was saying, I can't remember the titling of it, but it was very provocative. And he was saying something about the big misconception about, Palestine and stuff like that. I have no idea why he's decided to get involved in this. I genuinely believe that his arm is being twisted. If not, these guys are really destroying his reputation. And I think it hurts him. I'll be honest with you. I think it does actually hurt him. For him to go online and to see 34,000 comments, okay, on his channel, on his video with Netanyahu, 34,000, with 84% negativity. 84% negative comments. In fact, it's probably more than that if you consider how many of the, like, for example, the top comments are the most negative ones, most liked negative comments. So Robert Greene said this very well. He said that in the 48 Laws of Power, he said, protect your reputation with your life. It's one of his laws. And my advice to Jordan Peterson would be, it's not too late to leave the Daily Wire. It's not too late to come to Islam. It's not too late, because wallahi, here's what I actually think. I think the man believes in Islam. I believe that he believes it's true. I do. I believe he
said,
I think
you asked him straight up if you
no,
had
I
all
know,
the
but
evidence.
I
He
think
said,
deep
no,
down
I would not accept Islam.
I know, but I think deep down he sees the intellectual. It's intellectually satisfying for him. I think so. I think what's stopping him from embracing Islam are psychological things, are barriers, are cultural reasons, are friends that he has or something. But he could be like an Andrew Tate. He should look at the situation of Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate has become Muslim. What negativity has he received? Not really that much, right? In fact, it's made him more palatable for a mainstream audience. It's given him a proper backing. His right-wing, friends and stuff, and the Zionists, they don't even have the power to back him. Now they've left him. Like, think about it, right? If you were him, think about this. You're him.
I was Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. If you're Jordan Peterson, and now you're with the Daily Wire, they've suggested that you have this discussion with Netanyahu. Fine. He has this discussion with Netanyahu. He puts it up on Instagram, puts it up on YouTube. Almost 40,000 people don't like it, and they're telling you why they don't like it. They're criticizing it. They're very upset with it. Some of them will say, I've never seen, and I've had to look at all of his videos in order to discuss with him, because before my discussions with him, I do my homework. So I've never seen such a negative reaction to any video he has ever put up on YouTube. It's never happened. They have dented and damaged his reputation, because I think there was an assumption on their part, which is that actually they thought that we already have a right-wing audience. That's what they think. They've got an alt-right audience or right-wing audience, and right-wing people are in pro-Israel. So therefore, there shouldn't be such a negative response. What he didn't calculate was that he actually has audience from all around the world. And even those right-wing guys or center-right guys that do support him, they don't really agree with this whole Israel point. And that they see Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire and the whole establishment as completely contradictory and inconsistent as it relates to their freedom of speech, messaging, and on the one hand, but when it comes to Israel, a completely different kind of thing. Labeling of anti-Semitism every time you speak about them, all these kinds of things, trying to censor the virtue signaling comes. They basically become their own worst enemy. So from those perspectives, I think that there needs to be someone that keeps the door open for Jordan Peterson. And since he's already
that you? Are you the person keeping the door open?
Well, yeah, in a sense, yes. If he comes and says, "Listen," and this is what we have to keep saying this. I say, if Jordan Peterson, with all of that he's done, he's received so much da'wah privately and publicly. By the way, I speak to him privately, or I used to at least, and send him stuff like Quranic stuff, and he would ask questions, and it was like that, yeah. Oh, what should I read? Read this. It was like that kind of conversation. And what I'm saying is that the message of the Quran is that the doors of Islam are still open for you. And that might be the best way and the only way that you can restore your reputation in the world. And it could be one of the best ways and the only ways that you can have a happy life. At the end of the day, this might sound very facetious and very rude, but, forgive me. And I mentioned it to him once, but I'll mention it again. Jordan Peterson is at the highest level of understanding when it comes to psychology and stuff. Like, he's one of the top guys, yeah. But even he is depressed, or has been depressed, and he was, he went, I don't know where he went, Russia, and all these kind of things, taking benzos, very addictive drug, all these kind of things. Therefore, this should show the world, show the Westerners that are watching this, and everyone, even the Muslims, that it's not your understanding of psychological theory and your anti-depression methods or the 12 rules for life or any of that stuff, which is going to make you have a happy life or a content life or a satisfied life. That's not the answer. It can't be the answer, because the main proponent of it is not benefiting from it. And when I spoke to him, there was one aspect of one thing I said to him, which he agreed with, which I think has not been emphasized as much as it should have been, which I said to him, the Quran says that man a'rada an dhikri fa inna lahu ma'ishatan danka. Whoever goes against my dhikr, he has a depressed life. And I said, this is what the Islamic message says, what the Quran says. If ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, that certainly with the remembrance of God that you become. He said that he can see why that's the case, because if he went like this, and he said that if you have multiplicitous ends, then you're likely to be in a state of constant anxiety. But if you have one objective, which in this case is Allah, the transcendental, then that should bring about a state of peace and tranquility and so on. And what I'm saying to him is that we offer this to him, and this is better than any money anyone can offer him.
That's the thing that I feel is the disconnect between Peterson and Islam, is that he will acknowledge, okay, a transcendental principle, a unified principle that we can focus on. And actually, in your interview or your discussion with him, he kept mentioning unity, and we have to reach this transcendental unification. But it seems like he looks at it as an abstract concept, and the idea of an actual Lord, God, creator. He literally said that, oh, I'm not interested in that kind of interpretation or that kind of understanding. It's as if he wants to take this more abstract or deist type of intellectual, quote unquote, intellectual approach. So that's what makes me.
If you look at his latest book, because I read it a couple of times actually before I spoke to him first time, and if you see what he says about like the Mesopotamian gods and whatever, I forget the name of the god that he references, but he basically talks about the unity of God as a functional thing for society. So he was saying, like, you had all these gods, and then it became one god, and then it became one God. So he believes in this kind of, like, I'm sure you're aware of it, this anthropological idea, which that there's pantheism or polytheism. Then it transformed into monotheism, and he sees the societal impact of that, and he calls it a unifying entity or a unifying thing. So I think he's looking at it from a sociological / economic perspective, and much of his arguments are like that. He says, okay, I can see the benefit, the consequential benefit of there being one thing that all the tribes or all the people can direct, their attention to. But as you've mentioned, does he actually believe in a creator in the same way as I or you do, that there's a creator that is real, that is out there in a correspondence real way? I don't think he does, actually. I would think he's an agnostic. I think
Yeah.
he's an agnostic. I think he's either an agnostic, maybe a negative atheist, actually, because he's not a Christian. This is a big misconception. There is no way this man is a Christian. And his friend even said that to me, Jonathan. He said that Jordan Peterson is not a Christian, and Jonathan is one of he's a proper Christian. He said that Jordan Peterson is not. People think he's one of those Christian Zionists. He's not a Christian because he does not believe in the real. He's not a Christian as per how a Protestant or a Catholic or anybody actually would see it. He's actually, which is what I find ironic, because he keeps talking about these postmodernist Marxists, which I don't know who he's talking about, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing. The Marxists they have a meta narrative, and I tried to kind of allude to this, and I said it will be a worthless victory, but let me just mention it now. The Marxists have their own understanding of, oppression and surplus value and these kind of things, which postmodernists, for the most part, deconstruct, because they've deconstructed any meta narrative. So who are these figures that he's talking about, these postmodernist Marxists? These two things are almost juxtaposition. They're not the same. So he's made up a phantom enemy, this postmodernist Marxist. There's no such thing. In fact, if you really pay attention to Jordan Peterson, he is the closest thing to a postmodernist, because he's clearly stated with Sam Harris. He clearly stated that he believes in what do you call it, pragmatism. And if you look at all the proponents of pragmatism today, a lot of them are postmodernists. For example, what's that guy called in Stanford University? I forget his name now, but there's a guy. He's postmodernist pragmatist as well. So the point is that this pragmatic epistemological theory is almost completely in line with postmodernism. So why I'm bringing this to your attention is because he keeps talking about this phantom enemy, the postmodernist Marxist, where in reality, he is a postmodernist. I mean, he's the closest thing to it. So it's almost like he's projecting, use a Freudian term.
It's a deception. It's like a deception of his Christian audience, his mainly Christian audience, that he's presenting himself as a Christian, but
He's
really it's just a facade. And he's talking about the Bible as if it's just a book of myths, just no different than the Babylonian or Mesopotamian or Greek myths. Like that's
exactly that.
So this is as far away from a Christian as you can imagine. But I mean, Christianity has these kinds of strains within it that makes room for someone like Jordan Peterson. But in Islam, like it's weird to us, like to consider someone a believer who thinks the Quran is a book of myths, right?
Yeah, no way,
you're like a clear kafir if you were such. But for Christians, I think they do have strains within their tradition of, oh yeah, we don't take the Bible literally at all. It's all just allegory. It's all just figurative. There is no kind of reality to it. So maybe in that sense,
but to be fair, they don't do that with the key doctrines, like the essential. So with the crucifixion and the resurrection, the most lenient and allegorical, spiritualizing strands of Christianity that I've seen here in the UK, because I was in the Church of England. That was a part of it with my training, and I was in the Church of England, and I've met all these kind of liberal ones. Those guys, I don't think any of them went that far. He's going to a point where you could put it this way: you can be a fine atheist and believe in exactly what Jordan Peterson believes in when it comes to Christianity. Like, for example, Richard Dawkins, he said, "I'm an Anglican atheist" or something like that. I actually believe when I listen to, because I had to listen to them a few times, when I listened to Jordan Peterson's interactions with the new atheists in particular, I believe he was overpowered by them, actually. And I think not only that he was overpowered, I think he was actually convinced by them, bro. I believe it. I believe they convinced him. But he doesn't want to come out and say that. So he starts bringing up all these things. But I think they convinced him. Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. And look at the way, if you ever want to see how a dominant conversation goes, dominance and bullying, is to see Richard Dawkins and Jordan Peterson. Richard Dawkins just has none of it. He just goes for it. He keeps going for the jugular with the guy. And I think deep down, Jordan Peterson kind of agrees with that kind of materialist understanding of the world, because you can't be a Christian, and I don't think he even claims to be, and believe in the stuff that he believes in. It's out of the question, really. So this idea of him trying to align with the right wing and attacking the postmodernists, I think it's a phantom enemy. If anything, he is a postmodernist. Jordan Peterson is a postmodernist. Because if you're a pragmatist, it's so close. It's there. You're at touching distance from being a postmodernist. If not, you could argue you are. He is definitely closer to being a postmodernist. Let me refine the statement. He's closer to being a postmodernist than he will ever be to being a Christian. There's no doubt about that, to me anyway. And so I don't think it's the case with his wife or his daughter. I think they're actual Christians. But I think he is, an atheist, basically. We would call him a mulhid in Islam. We'd call him just a disbeliever, or a mulhid, someone who does jahd of the the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the names and the attributes and the that and everything. He would not be considered like Ahl Kitab. He would not be considered.
Yeah. So I think ultimately your position, though, has been clear now, that you, like, maybe personally, the door is open. You'll share with him ayat of the Quran, but you're not promoting him outside of that to the Muslim community.
I've never promoted anyone. Like, to be honest with you, if you name me the worst, guy in the world, or the worst woman, I would go, and they say, look, if they have a following and they have people that listen to them, Cardi B, or I don't know what's that one, the Nicki Minaj, any of those, I'll go and speak to any of those. Yani, if someone says, well, why are you promoting her? I'm not promoting her. I'm just giving da'wah to her and her followers. Same thing with Prophet Moses, alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him and his brother, فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. So say something lenient to them, to him, i.e. Fir'aun, that maybe he will ponder, yani, he will fear Allah. Yani. So the point is that our job is to deliver the message of Islam, and deliver it to anybody, and people have to be mature about that. They have to know what we're doing. If they feel like they can't handle it, or that it creates shubuhat for them, like, for example, yourself speaking to some, I don't know, Aaron Ra, or some would say, or some have said, this creates more shubuhat and they shouldn't do it, and so there's nonsense things that people say, then they don't have to watch. If it creates shubuhat for you, then don't watch it. The idea is there's a group of people that it actually solves the shubuhat for, or there's a group of people that will benefit from it. So for me, my perspective, the Prophet ﷺ, he went and spoke to the chieftains of Quraysh. He spoke to people that are considered enemies of Islam. In fact, he spoke to people that are considered enemies of Islam.
Let me push back a little bit, if you forgive me. What someone could say to that is, even with the Anbiya and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will engage, but ultimately it's very clear that it's an oppositional engagement. It's not, let's join hands and have a conversation about some unrelated matter. Rather, it's, meeting to debate, or meeting to, here's one side and here's the other side, and it's clear conflict. And it can be civil. It can be, that's how I took your interview, actually, with Jordan Peterson. I didn't think that, Jordan Peterson and Mohammad Hijab, they're on the same page, basically, and they're just having a chit chat about politics. No, I felt that you are coming with a strong position for Islam. He's coming from this kind of doubtful position, atheistic position, you could say, and you're, engaging those ideas. And no one could say that, Mohammad Hijab is just promoting everything that Peterson is saying. No, there's a purpose for that confrontation. So I think that that's an important component, because I think that's what you're basically saying. You're not saying you're going to go sit with Cardi B or whoever and have a chat about, like, your favorite, type of art or something like that. It's going to be, the opposition is going to be either explicit, or it's going to be, just implicit by, what you're saying and how you're presenting yourself.
Absolutely. And I remember sometime before speaking of Andrew Tate, also people were really upset about that, and they were like, do you think he's? And one guy said to me, "Do you think he's going to be Muslim or not?" This was before he became Muslim. I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't know, but we have to keep the door open, and because if he does become Muslim, a lot of people will follow him." And when he did become Muslim, a lot of people followed him, and it was like the floodgates were open of a lot of his people that were just wanted to become Muslim. Now, Jordan Peterson, the same kind of aura surrounds him, and the same kind of opportunities are there with him as well. So we always have to keep a door open there for the enemy or the opposition, or people that are on the other side of things. We have to keep a door open for them, because my fear is that we can drive someone away from Islam that could otherwise have become Muslim. Like a lot of the Sahaba, people have to remember, started off as enemies of Islam. But like Abu Khattab famously, became a Muslim. So,
but those enemies were fought, right? They were
yeah,
openly
no
fought
doubt, no doubt.
against. It wasn't like, I think
But
that's your.
yeah, I agree, and I agree with your point about opposition. Like you have to be clear about where you stand. Like where we stand is we're Muslims. We believe in Allah and the Messenger. We have our red lines, and the red lines are twofold. The way I see it is that you can become an enemy of Islam, a harbi, if you like. That's one strand of things. And then there's a lesser level, which is that you are aiding the enemies of Islam, let's say. And then the third level is that you are not an enemy of Islam, but you indulge in a fasik lifestyle, for example.
But isn't
So
that what Peterson is doing? He's like allying with the enemies of Islam. He's like desecrating Masjid al-Aqsa. You know what I'm
exactly,
saying?
and all of that things was done after I had conversations with him.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah. So that's part of the problem. Well, to be fair, I did have a conversation with him. I said to him, like, what's going on with the Masjid al-Aqsa thing, and there's a few things with that one. There's a bit of ta'wil that you can make, in the fact that is he trying to desecrate it or not. His answer to me was completely different, and he did allow me, by the way, to share it, so I can read it out. I don't know if I should. He gave me an answer that was completely different to the answer that he subsequently made. He made an answer, he subsequently made it. And he said, look, I said, do you give me permission to be public? Because even with him, I believe in Majasul Amana. Even with the enemy of Islam, I don't, if I have conversations with people, it's confidential. I don't share emails or stuff like that, even with the enemy, because if we don't have that, then people won't engage with us. It's as simple as that. It's very dangerous for someone like me to share. But this one, because he allowed me to, I can read it out to you if you want.
Go ahead.
I can
Yeah,
try.
if he
Shall I
gave
do
you
that?
permission. Yeah.
If he gave me permission to read this one out, so I'm gonna find it and get it.
Sure.
But I asked him about this, like the Aqsa thing. I said, what's going on and blah blah blah. And I was at that time still giving him, a lot of concession, because at the end of the day, one second, we still try and get these guys to become Muslim. One second, let me try and find.
Yeah, the thing about Peterson and others who, I think that's exactly right. The line that you're drawing is that they are now into the territory of battling against Islam, battling against Muslims, and violating, just sitting with Netanyahu. That should be, a red line, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he did that once again after I spoke to him. But let me find you.
Yeah, this is all, we're talking about your stance, now that all of this has come out. Of course, your previous conversations, it was before he sits with Netanyahu. He goes to Masjid
I found
al-Aqsa.
what he said. Yeah. Now he actually gave me permission to read this out. Now the reason why I'm reading this out is, number one, he gave me permission to publicize this. Number two, because subsequently he made a message. He put a message forward, okay, which is completely different to this. The tone was different, and everything was different. He goes, he calls it on storming in quote marks Al-Aqsa. That's what he says. Yeah, he goes, on Tuesday, the 11th of October, I journeyed with a Daily Wire Plus film crew, including Ben Shapiro, to Temple Mount or Haram al-Sharif Al-Aqsa Mosque. The entire project had been cleared with the requisite authorities, so there was simply no storming of the site. Quite the contrary, and there was nothing at all particularly political about our activities. We traveled there as part of the completion of an upcoming documentary about Jerusalem, which is in turn part of a planned series on the sources of Western civilization. When we arrived, a rabbi who has been agitating for the right of the Jews to pray on that site, something currently forbidden by the very authorities who arranged our right to walk and film there, made his presence known nearby. He was not part of our group and was not given permission to undertake his activities under our auspices. Nor was his activity part of any authorized, nor was his activity part of what was authorized by those who granted us permission to be there, to walk and to film. None of the people with me engaged in any activities that were outside the purview of what had been formally granted permission. All the claims that my compatriots and the Daily Wire film crew and I were violating the rules that obtain on the Al-Aqsa site are patently false, based upon misunderstanding of what occurred, and unnecessarily troublesome and adversarial because of that. Suspicion is not the same as reality, and we could all do with a bit less unwarranted suspicion and the claim of combative moral virtue that often accompanies such a claim. J.B. Peterson. What do you think of this?
That sounds exactly like what he said publicly.
No, there was something different. Remember what he said publicly was, he said something like tyranny. He referred something about tyranny, the tyrannical rules or something. The reason
of the masjid.
Yeah, and what he's referring to there, by the way, he was referring to basically they've got some. I think it's the Jordan government, the Jordanese government, Jordanian government, and Masjid al-Aqsa have a rule. If some tourists want to come to Masjid al-Aqsa, that there's a particular time for non-Muslims to come. They can come and see the Masjid al-Aqsa in that time. Otherwise, if you go to Masjid al-Aqsa and you're not a Muslim, you're not allowed to go inside, because they realized through in the past, in the last 20, 30, 40 years, that you had like these settler Zionist guys coming in and creating problems. So what they do now is they check if you're Muslim or not before you go into the masjid. So what I think he's trying to say here is, he's saying that he came at a time where it was okay for the non-Muslims to be there. Now this is what he's saying here, but in the message that he put out, he started referring to it as tyrannical and these kind of things. There's a stark difference, I think, in that respect. However, if that's tyrannical, then let's talk about Gaza, and let's talk about the West Bank, and let's talk about the settlements, and let's talk about the apartheid regime. Is that not tyrannical? Because to date, and I can
even the idea that these authorities that are dictating who can and come into Masjid al-Aqsa, like that in itself is the problem, and he's kind of ignoring that elephant in the room and saying, "Oh, we got permission from the authorities." Well, these authorities are not legitimate. Like, that's the response that we would give. So don't be so naive, deliberately naive, that you don't understand like the implications, the political implications, the religious implications of this is our third holiest site, and you are just traipsing in there with one of the biggest Islamophobes, enemies of Islam, just walking in on permission of an authority. Okay, which the Zionist authority, the pro-Zionist authority, like that makes it legitimate. So
and Ben Shapiro in the past has actually he was on the newspapers, the Israeli newspaper, I think Haaretz being one of them. He was on there because he trespassed one time, and he went in and started doing his Jewish prayer in Masjid al-Aqsa. Now, the legitimacy of that, I haven't fact checked it, but at least there is some discussion about him being controversial in that respect. So you go in with him, considering that background, and considering the fact that, from what I remember, the Intifada, the second Intifada, was ignited when Ariel Sharon went into Masjid al-Aqsa. That's when it started. So it was a symbolic figure, or a symbolic move that triggered an entire Intifada. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically like an uprising or a revolt that the Palestinians had, which led to many, many deaths on both sides, but mostly on the Palestinian side, as usually is the case. It was one of probably the biggest revolts, or if you're going to call it rebellion or whatever you want to call it, of the time period. And it was led on the back of Ariel Sharon going and do it. So these are the kinds of facts that people should be aware of. Now, unfortunately, it seems like Jordan Peterson's not listening to advice, man. And obviously, he's doing what he wants to do. So people are doing what they want to do with him. They're attacking him and they're showing him that they're not interested in watching his stuff. Many people have said, we've unsubscribed. And that's really painful for someone like Jordan Peterson, I think is. I think,
it's on
it
the
really
verge
is,
of tears.
he spent his whole life accumulating an audience of multinational people, international, cosmopolitan, and now the Daily Wire are ruining it all for him. They're destroying his reputation. I would say to him, look, no matter what is the deal is, the reputational damage that you're getting from these guys is too much.
Yeah,
it's too much. And I would still say to Jordan Peterson, the offer is still open for him to repent for his sins, to leave off the Daily Wire, to leave off these guys, Ben Shapiro and these guys. You don't need them in your life, and do what Andrew Tate done. Become Muslim, and you'll see a real supportive system. People that just not use you, in a Machiavellian sense, for their own objectives, and to your own detriment. That's not a good partnership. It's not a good deal. It's a very bad deal. Very bad deal.
Yeah. And, I think I gave you this advice as well. And, I think you agree that we shouldn't let someone like Peterson take advantage of a prominent, world-renowned Muslim figure, da'iyah, such as yourself, and try to gain clout, because I think it's actually he is more dependent on you than you could ever be of him, because he doesn't have that foot into the Muslim audience unless he maintains a good relationship with someone such as yourself. So I think you can actually exert pressure on him and give him tough love, so to speak, and say, look, this is unacceptable and we don't tolerate this. You're violating our holy spaces, and this is you need to shape up or ship out. How can I continue to or how can I not denounce you in strong ways, which you have done. You have given him strong words since that interview came out and since the Masjid al-Aqsa event happened. So inshallah, I think that you are in a good, strong position, inshallah, to influence these types of public intellectuals in favor of Muslim interests and, Islam in general.
Inshallah. And, as I say, we try and negotiate on behalf of community to try and get something from, because one of the objectives that we had for a very long time here in the UK is to get to one of those ru'us, or one of those a'imma of the kufr, actually, of the disbelief, which are the pro-Zionists like Ben Shapiro and Netanyahu or whoever it may be. Now, I know it might be sounding like we're aiming for the stars, but wallahi, I don't think it's too ridiculous for us to do a Zoom call with Netanyahu where he can put his things on the table. Why not?
Debate of the century.
It'll be fantastic. It'll be great. It's better than look how many views he got. He got 700,000 views with Benjamin Netanyahu, and which is 1/3 of the amount he got with me in either of the two discussions, because I got 3 million with him each time. Now, I'm saying this only because I know I'm just data for him, And number two, when he engaged with a Muslim, either me, even with Hamza Yusuf, both times he got over 90% approval ratings. This guy got from 85% disapproval, negative comments. So even from a dunya perspective, even from a worldly perspective, it doesn't advantage him. If I was a multi-millionaire, billionaire, I don't know what his net worth is, Jordan Peterson, but I would not take even 1 billion pounds from somebody or from an organization or from whoever it is at the expense of me being called, I'm under someone, I'm being controlled of someone, and these things that people are saying. I would not accept this. It's a reputational damage that is too much. It's too much.
For people like this, sometimes there's more than just reputation. Like, they want the access to the halls of power. They want to be able to enter and rub shoulders with the ru'asa, as you said, of the kuffar, some of these satanic elites, and some people have suggested that maybe Jordan Peterson is being blackmailed. Maybe there's some kind of satanic ritual that he was a part of, and is being used to control him. Not Netanyahu.
What
Peterson.
can Netanyahu offer him? What can you offer him? What can he? This is the question you have to ask yourself when you're negotiating. What can this guy's offer me? What can a Daily Wire actually offer me? Yeah, what can they offer me? Money,
Well,
like
if they have
friendship, like okay, well, all these things. Like to be quite honest with you, there's
if they
no
have
better
pictures and
friendship.
video, they have
Yeah, I mean
pictures and video, then they
nothing,
can, that's
nothing. He cannot.
blackmail.
Yeah. He cannot offer you. Wallahi, he cannot offer much. I think what we offer as Muslims to the Jordan Peterson likes Islam, quality of life. Your depression is alleviated. You have meaning. He wrote a book called Maps of Meaning. You have the biggest community of people that will be always for you, loyal with you, that you can be with them. Yani, the people would die for you. People would die for you if you become a Muslim. Now, people don't realize this about Muslim people, but Muslim people will die for other Muslim people. If you see them getting hurt, or if a woman was being attacked or something, we would put our lives on the line for this people. This kind of loyalty, this kind of camaraderie, this kind of fraternity, you cannot and you will not get it from whatever superficial relationship is being had elsewhere. So I'm saying that I can't offer any money, and I wouldn't. But I'm offering something more important. And for someone like Jordan Peterson, where his legacy really matters, for himself, it really matters because he's going to die soon, just like we all are. He's 60 years old. How long do human beings live? He's got another 20 years, 30 years. And in that time, you want to consider leaving behind a legacy, you see, which is going to be, people are going to be citing you from all around the world. These guys are blocking you from being able to do that. I would say that you should go out against him, in fact, and join us, actually. That's what I say to him.
So I had some rapid fire questions just to lighten the mood a little bit. But one of them is not so light, and we kind of touched on a little bit with the idea of satanic elites and so forth. So is there any kind of conspiracy theory that you believe in?
No, I don't know. I don't even know if I believe in this conspiracy theories like flat Earth and all this kind of things. I'm not interested in them. Do you know that? Yeah, I'm not really, to be honest with you. I don't know.
You can give a wink, if you don't want to say it out loud. Just give us a signal if there's any conspiracy theories that you believe in.
Only one. Only one.
Okay. Yeah, I believe in a lot of conspiracy theories. So
I would like to see not even the evidence. I would like to see some videos like, about it and stuff. Oh, JFK, stuff like that. Yeah.
Any conspiracy theory, not just
probably. A lot of them probably elites. True. But a lot of them. It's speculation for me. I don't know. To be honest, I couldn't say I definitely believe in any of this stuff because it's all shrouded in like speculative stuff. The whole thing is speculation for me.
Illuminati and Freemasons and these are
Freemasons. I don't know what they. Well, they've got hierarchies and stuff, isn't it? Yeah, they do black magics and stuff, innit? Like I think they do. Because I met one guy one time that he was telling me about it. I had a guy at my workplace. I was working in a thing before, and he was telling me that he was admitting it. He's doing black magic, and that he gets the woman to come to him, and that he done a magic trick, and then the woman came to him. Did I say about that? Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, so if people can do it like on a low level, then on a higher level,
definitely. I think there is satanic rituals. I believe in that stuff. But is that really a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, because they're not openly Satan worshippers. Yeah,
this stuff is happening, man.
Or do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
I don't know, man. I wasn't really watching the whole thing properly. Like I know there's a Netflix thing on there. I didn't really watch that, and I don't know what happened, man. Maybe he did. Good reputational damage. Like once again, we were talking about Jordan Peterson. Like that's the worst thing you can be in the society, a pedophile and these kind of things. And it was too much. I think he killed himself from it.
Well, the conspiracy with him is not that he was the pedophile. It was that he was getting children, girls for the Epstein Island, and people are flying. These elites and billionaires and politicians are flying to his island and doing these kinds of things with little children and girls, and then they take pictures of it and then use that as blackmail to control those politicians and figures for the rest of their lives. So that's the whole. That's some people are speculating that maybe Peterson's erratic behavior can be explained by such such strings attached.
No, man, no, we couldn't say. But I don't know, man. It's like, to be honest with you, this guy, I don't really have any. Don't care about him, to be honest with you. this Epstein. But yeah, did he kill himself or did he not? I have no idea. No idea at all.
Okay. So continuing with some of these interesting rapid fire questions. What's your favorite cuisine?
Indian cuisine, number one.
Okay.
I've got a top 5, in fact. You know, I've been thinking. This is a question I've been thinking about for a very long time. Yeah, because like Indian is up there. They're 100%. The issue is with number 2. Like, where do I put? What do I put as number 2? But you were surprised. I actually put American there as well, because if you're talking about like burgers and stuff like that, we always eat that stuff, man. And that is American, isn't it? I don't know if that's American or not, but
yeah.
It's up there then, because we always have it. Like, we always have burgers. We like it. I base it on the things that I would have on a regular basis. One thing that people don't know about and is very underrated is Somali food. I don't know whether or not to put it in the top 5, but there's a place in London. There's a few places, man. There's very, very good. So it's amazing, but their marketing is horrible. You know, another thing which I actually really like is Nigerian food, man. Like the spicy ones, man. Very, very nice. And Italian food has to be in the top 5. Why? Because you know, it's they've got all this. I would put Moroccan tagine as number 2, bro. I actually think Moroccan tagine is fantastic. It's brilliant, but they've got 2 or 3 really high quality meals. But I wouldn't say their entire cuisine is deserving of that. Gordon Ramsay, he went to Morocco, and I saw like some videos of him eating some of that meat, and he said, I quote, "It's the best meat I've ever had in my life." That's what he said. And you know, Gordon Ramsay is a high level guy. But yeah, so these are the kinds of Afghan food, Iranian food, and Turkish food are all for me around the same kind of level, isn't it? It really depends on what you want, but they basically do very basic stuff. It wouldn't be the top 5, not because it doesn't deserve to be, not because I don't like it, but it's simply because it's not as creative as it needs to be for a top 5 meal cuisine. Indian is like when you're eating a good, you know, Indian dish, it's like you are having an experience. It's an experience. But with Afghan, I'm sorry to say, you can't say that. That chutney, it will be there in the top 10. the green chutney, you know, with the cowboy, was it palau? You know, the rice and that actually is brilliant. It's fantastic. I'll put it in the top 10. But to be in the top 5, like world class, no, I'll say no.
Okay, so anyone who has been angered by these comments from Brother Hijab, please don't take out your rage in the chat.
No. But, Afghani food is fantastic, but I wouldn't put it up there with what do you call it? Indian? No way.
What about Egyptian food, Masri food?
I love Egyptian food myself, but I know that it wouldn't be world class level, because mulukhiyya and mahshi and stuff, I love it. I personally love it, but it's an acquired taste. I'm from Alexandria, and we have livers. Anywhere I go, I always ask for chicken livers. I love chicken livers. I love any kind of livers, in fact. But with Nando's and stuff like that, maybe we should order some food, bro. So, you know, we've got a place called Nando's with the chicken livers. They have it in some places. It's very good. It's a good thing to order, bro. But what I was gonna say, would I say that it's if 1,000 people from all around the world tasted all these different kinds of food, would they put Egyptian top 10? I don't think so. I don't think it's got enough there to get to the top 10. To be honest with you, that's me being. No. I'll be very specific. I don't think the Pakistani cuisine is as good as the Indian one, especially not the Gujarati curries. The Gujarat curries are on a different level, bro.
Are you talking to
matured? I know what you're saying, but I've had both, and I prefer actual Indian Gujarati. This is for me. It's the number 1. It's the best thing you can have. If you want to really enjoy food, you have to try this Indian stuff. Pakistani would obviously it's great. I'll tell you later. I don't want to.
Is this?
Now I've had it in houses and people's houses. No, but it's good, man. It's really good. Indian food for me is up there. Chinese food and stuff like that. They're in the top 10. Once again, I like spicy food, as many of you would think, but I wouldn't put it there in the top 5. But why? Because no, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. And same with Thai and same with Malaysian food. It's all there. But of all those 3, I probably put Thai as number 1. Of all those 3 things. But yeah, I like spicy food. I like fish. I really like fish. Like in Alexandria, we have like fish stuff in it. So I like that. Paella and stuff like Spanish food, Portuguese food and stuff like that. It's not as good as it looks, I would say. It's not as good as it looks. And when it comes to like Central Asia, not Asia, Central Asia we talked about. Europe, like Central Europe is horrible food, like Germany and these kind of places. In fact, the French have good food. You'd be surprised. The French have good food, but you can't have a lot of it because it's pork and this kind of things. Bacon, but I wouldn't put it up in the top 10. No chance at all.
Yeah. Okay, well that's I also really love Indian food as well. So
do you? Yeah,
that'd be at my top.
Do you have Persian food? Because you're from Iran, isn't it?
Yeah. Persian I like as well.
You can still have.
Yeah. I eat Persian food. I actually eat a lot of Egyptian food because my wife is Egyptian.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. Would you have mulukhiyah and stuff like that?
Yeah, mulukhiyah, love mulukhiyah, ta'amiyah.
Really? Yeah.
Mahshi, of course. So.
Or you have mahshi as well. With the wara anab. You have that.
Yeah, wara anab, fulful. I mean, yeah.
No way. That was a good one, I have to say. I think that wara anab, the Egyptian one, is probably the best one of the other ones. For me, anyway. But
yeah, come to Texas. You want to go to a gun range, we can go to a gun range, and then we can finish off with some mahshi at my place.
That'd be fantastic. That would be brilliant, man. Inshallah, yeah. That would be very good.
Yeah. So let's talk about Andrew Tate. So you had him on. You announced the interview that you're going to have with him before he became Muslim, correct? So, or was it that he had become Muslim but he hadn't announced it yet? Oh, from before.
Yeah.
So when you scheduled that interview, you knew that he had become Muslim.
No, not. I didn't know yet.
Okay. So then when you announced it, and immediately there was all this blowback, mainly from Muslim women. So they had all this kind of criticism of you, saying, why are you platforming this misogynist, blah, blah, blah. So to what extent, if at all, should the opinion of these Muslim women be considered, in this kind of situation? Obviously, you had the interview, but
alhamdulillah, like it wasn't even Muslim women, it was some Muslim feminist women. And you'd be surprised, man. Like I think after you made a lot of videos as well, and I made some videos, you made some videos, and after people saw that, especially when people saw the actual podcast itself and his subsequent behavior where he's trying and stuff like that, I think those voices were almost silenced. Like right now, these voices are like nothing now. And because especially some of them said such ridiculous things that anyone with reason and iman could not accept it. Like this famously, one woman said on Twitter, she goes, if he becomes Muslim, I'm going to leave Islam. And so everyone started reacting to that, and they started to see how emotional this thing was for a lot of these sisters. And it's not just sisters. There were some brothers that are like that as well. Like feminism can corrupt anyone. And so there were these guys coming out and they were saying these kinds of things, man. And alhamdulillah, I think we dominated the narrative with that one. I think it was a victory. Like I think that by and large, people started to see like, what is the problem with somebody becoming a Muslim? Like, because if you take this thought process to its logical conclusion, there was lots of Sahaba that did lots of bad things. There were Sahaba that tried to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like
before they became Muslim,
yeah, before they became Muslim, of course. So like, imagine if that is the worst thing you can imagine. I cannot imagine anything worse than this. One of the worst physical actions that you can do on the dunya is try and kill one of the prophets. And yet they were forgiven, and yet all of these things were there. So at the end of the day, I think that when people, they realize that their line of thinking and questioning, we will not accept this guy as a Muslim. What do you mean? Because if you say that, it's actually a slippery slope to rejecting the religion of Islam. or rejecting the foundations of the religion of Islam, which are the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because then, when you start investigating the lives of these people, then you say, okay, this man did this, or this woman did this, yani, or this one, or yani, Wahshi done that, or whoever it may be, and they became Muslim. So you will not be able to be consistent in being a Sunni Muslim and having these attitudes towards someone converting to Islam. I don't think so.
Do you think that there is a problem with the way that some Muslim women or Muslim women who have been wooed by feminism, attracted by feminism, them trying to influence dawah and the direction of dawah? Do you think like this is a big problem based on your own experience?
Yeah, I think we've done like a lot of responses to the Honest Tea Talks sisters. There were some sisters there that were kind of like, they were in a terrain, they were in a space which was quite similar, which was quite ambiguous. Was it a dawah space? Was it a counseling pastoral place? And I don't think that, I'll be honest with you, women who are that way inclined, like have feministic tendencies or influenced by some feminist narratives, even if they don't claim to be feminist, may vehemently deny that they are feminists, even. That those types of women are not as much concerned with the dawah, quote unquote, especially to non-Muslims, as they are to their own everyday lives, pastoral issues, their own marriages. They've had heartbreak, their husband's married another woman, whatever it may be. So that kind of dynamic exists. And I think there needs to be a multifaceted approach on how to deal with that. I do believe that there is the ideological approach or the promulgation approach, there's the media approach that me and you do, but there also needs to be a pastoral approach, because a lot of sisters, it's not, if you sit with them and speak with them and ask them, why do you feel these ways, and you investigate their lives, you'll find heartbreak, pain somewhere in their life. So they need a lot of them, they need some, someone to kind of guide them out of that process, to help them, to be kind with them, to be gentle with them, to be compassionate with them. And sometimes they need something else. Sometimes they just need to be told they're wrong, that this is kufr. They need the hard approach. But I think we need to have both in the ummah. And me and you, let's say, we occupy one certain space, but there is also a need for, I don't know, some kind of other sisters, especially like other sisters that have the right aqidah, the right manhaj, and that are role model figures, to take these sisters as mentees, so that they can be their mentors. They can say, okay, this is, how it's meant to be.
I think that's a great thing to have a mentor or have pastoral care, as long as it's private. It's not like
private stuff,
public, and you have your podcast and you have like lessons online or even halaqat, because this is the problem like that I see with some of the imams, especially in the West, that they want to have a soft pastoral approach because of interaction with usually women, and they will distort aspects of Islam for the sake of being softer or being more liberal, basically. But the thing is that that's that pastoral approach may be justified in a private context because you're dealing with a specific person and you're trying to guide them to the right direction because they're so far. But if you put that online and you put that in public, then that becomes the standard or the default. For example, if someone has a real problem with let's say polygyny, like multiple wives, a sister has a lot of problems with that and she's on the verge of leaving Islam, the way that someone would talk to that sister in a private context, like another sister talking to that sister in a private context, might be a little bit more accommodating and won't be like the kind of hard stance or the clear-cut stance that you or I would give in public. But if that kind of soft private pastoral context is then broadcast online, it gives the impression that, this is the standard stance of Islam on polygyny. That, for example, some are saying, in our times, polygyny is not even allowed, it's haram or it's makruh, or things of this nature, like that are actively distorting deen.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And there are some people that can come publicly and be very kind and compassionate, whatever, so long as they don't distort, because we have different, temperaments. Like I'm more of a confrontationalist or controversialist sometimes. Sometimes I can be a bit of a joker, whatever it is. You yourself can be you're more stoic, and you can control your emotions a lot more than I can, but you also you don't mind being thrust into the eye of the storm of controversy. But there are some other people that their temperament won't really be like that, and they don't like to deal with these kind of things, and they want to accommodate. Now, you can do all that so long as you stay within the remit, and that's what you're saying, and I think that's right, because there's some people that will take it above and beyond what Islam can allow, and that's where the problem is. And it becomes weakness at one point. Actually, it starts moving away from lenience to being weakness, and that's what we don't want. So I agree that I think that though there needs to be, I agree that there should be a private approach, and there should be an organized private approach where this sisters can look at other sisters as role models, because al-mar'u ala dini khalili, at the end of the day, the person is on the religion of their friend, and if all their friends have these tendencies, it's so difficult for them not to have them. You'd have to really be a strong person and strong-minded and stuff like that. So my advice to sisters in these kind of situations would be, try and remove those people from your life, the ones who you see yourself being influenced by, that they're really pushing you in that direction, and try and put people in your life that will embody at least the spirit of Islam. And if you can't find it except through a man or your husband, then it might be a good idea to be honest with you, make your life more family centric. Focus on women that are not going to do that to you, because they're going to ruin your life. At the end of the day, they're going to push you towards divorce. They're going to push you towards hating aspects of the religion in an indirect way. And I think that stuff is actually really prominent in our societies, man. And families do it as well, unfortunately. Like, you'll find some families saying to the woman, don't accept this from him, don't allow this, don't let him treat you like a slave, don't this and that. This kind of behavior, this talk, which it destroys households. It infuriates me, to be honest with you, because it destroys households. And obviously there are men that are oppressive and they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but we need to surround ourselves with people with similar mindsets, because then that we can have happy lives, family lives, stable families, and so on.
Yeah. On the same topic of Andrew Tate, do you think that his popularity, like unprecedented popularity with Muslims, does this really show that a kind of more compassionate imam type of dawah, and a more maybe feminized dawah, soft, that this is basically obsolete, and it's basically something that is no longer going to be effective in the dawah scene?
I don't think it's ever been effective. I'll be honest. If that's all you're going to be, like, let's look at any protagonist in any film, look at the IMDb the top 250 films that have been that they have. 100 of them, or top 100, yeah. I actually put this on Twitter one time, because I haven't watched all those films. I used to watch these films when I was younger. A lot of them I watched them, and the ones that I would say probably 90 to 95% of those films in the IMDb top 100 have a male alpha protagonist. The moment they remove that, they start to get these kinds of low ratings and money that they're losing in Hollywood and all this kind of thing. Why? Because it's just the case, as always been the case, that men like to imitate other men who have qualities of leadership, which include but not limited to courage, forthrightness, leadership, control, these kinds of things,
willingness,
and
to
including compassion as well. But they're always compassion. These kind of things are there. They're integral. They're important. The Prophet ﷺ, he's rahmatan al-alamin. He is a mercy for all of humanity. But it would not be mercy if you are being controlled or manipulated or told what to do. That would be weakness. And I that's one point I probably disagree with your usage of the term compassionate imams, because compassionate is actually a positive thing. We should just call them weak imams, because that's the truth of what we're talking about here. If this appeasement style and stuff is not really compassion. The Prophet ﷺ
Yeah,
was
of course.
called the compassionate, and he was the warrior. He went out to the battlefield. He was killing, stuff a lot,
Yeah.
killing the people, but he was battling the people. He was doing this, and he had 9 wives at one time. And then he started speaking about, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, for example. He says, "ما كان الرفق في شيء إلا زانه ونزع الرفق من شيء إلا شانه." The gentleness was not in anything except that it made it more beautiful, and it was not removed from anything except that it made it more ugly. And it comes from a man who's acting like a man. That's why we accept it from him. He's the same one that says, "Tabassumu fi wajhi akhika sadaqa." That if you smile if your face of your brother is a sadaqah. He's the same one who, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was so humble, was so merciful and so kind. He was so kind with everybody. With Julaybib, the disabled man, who was the only one. He cried when he died. With Bilal, who was a black man, and there was racism in that society. With the women in that society, he was very, very accommodating and very merciful and very compassionate with them, and also with all the men. He was so merciful to everyone, even those who came to Islam. Wahshi, who came into Islam, it's the same Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was also very strong, and that's what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, these guys, a lot of the so-called compassionate imams in America, especially in California and these places, and when I went there and see them, they're not compassionate imams. They're just weak imams, and they shouldn't even be called imams.
The word compassionate imam is like an ironic, facetious type of mockery of them.
Yes.
Because they have labeled themselves as compassionate. They say we are the compassionate ones, as opposed to these harsh Muslims who are distorting the Sunnah by talking about ghazawat and jihad and masculinity and being the wali, being the strong leader. They're not compassionate. We are compassionate. And so they have appropriated this term for themselves as if liberalizing and feminizing Islam is in line with mercy. But exactly as you say, no, compassion goes hand in hand with leadership. Compassion goes hand in hand with being strong in the face of opposition and all of the shaja'a, all of these values that Islam teaches. That is compassion, not this distorted, feminized, liberalized, weak, pathetic, cute imam type of stuff. So when we say compassionate imam, it's like a mockery of them. Oh, okay, yeah, you are the compassionate imams, like in this
I get
distorted
you.
way.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, but compassion is one of the manly attributes. Do you know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was? Do you know nowadays they're talking about masculinity and this and that? I find all of that stuff kind of what's the word, cringeworthy, or the youth say nowadays. I don't like this whole thing about like this videos about what is a man and what is masculinity and stuff, because it's more of a thing. It's like, what is a curry? You have to eat it, taste it, feel it. It's an experience. Yeah, if I tell you a curry has got spices in it, it's got this and it's got that, it's not the same. So what a man is something you do, is something you observe. It's not something you write down in abstractions. But there are some things. Having said that, there are some things the Prophet ﷺ, because when you ask what is a man, one common approach that people do is they go in the Quran, they find whether rijal or rajul or whatever, or rajulan or whatever is there, and they try and find that. Yeah, that's an approach. I'm not saying it's wrong, but there's one beautiful hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which he said, "Asharru ma fi rajuli bukhlun hala wa jubnun khala." The worst thing that can be in a man, there's 2 things he said, the worst things, and this for me, if you want it, it's in balagha, it's called al-ijaz. It is one of the best ways, summarized speech, and it's comprehensive, and it gives you everything that you need to know. Really, the worst 2 things you can have in a man, Prophet is telling us, is somebody who is so bakhil, is so miserly, stingy, and at the same time is very cowardly, which means the 2 most important, because mafhum mukhalafa, in a sense, although there's difference on the issue of mafhum mukhalafa, but 2 most important things that a man must make sure that he has to differentiate himself from a woman is, in a sense, generosity, the ability to provide financially for the woman, and that's in the Quran, بِمَا أَنفَقَ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And number 2 is courage, because a woman is not expected to do jihad and not expected protection physically. So you have to put yourself in a position where you can make money for your family and you can protect your family physically in these things. That is what I think the 2 primary things that differentiate a man from a woman. So when I say to someone, be a man, I mean be brave and don't be a coward. This is the main thing I'm saying. And I'm saying also, yani, if he's stingy, then be generous. Be generous with your friends. Be generous with your family. Don't be, yani. So when we say be a man, I'm saying be brave. And that is one of the defining characteristics. And to be brave is to speak the truth. To speak the truth, and not be so scared of the consequences. Sometimes you have to put people in their places. Sometimes, the woman in the community, if you come out like when we did with honest tea talks, many women didn't like it. So many. I said, I don't care. In a way, I don't care. This is what I knew was going to happen. I don't care. Maybe I was a bit rude, and I apologize for my rudeness and stuff. I shouldn't be compassionate, but some of the stuff I don't retract. I can't retract because it's the truth. And so, in a way, we have to start having this attitude, which is the attitude of let's bring the truth, because when we start bringing the truth, people will follow us, akhi, because the truth is so powerful. It's so powerful, akhi.
Well, these feminists will say that, this value of generosity and compassion and bravery, shouldn't women have these traits as well?
Yeah, but not at the same level. That's the point, because bravery is one of those things which it needs to be developed. I know for a fact that sometimes when I think about the men of the past and what they did, sometimes I think, how could they do it? Like, for example, when I read the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad and especially the fights that they got into, mushatara and mubaraza, when it's like one-on-ones with the sword, like, it's how scary must that be with Ali ibn Abi Talib, for example, choosing the most scary guy on the other side and say, I want to fight this guy one-on-one and with a sword, and the winner, he stays alive and the loser dies. Akhi, like any MMA fight that you have nowadays, what's the worst thing that can happen? You can break your leg, you can break your arm, you can get knocked out, you can get choked out. Yeah, I cannot imagine a thing that is so high stakes. It doesn't exist in our age. So for me, if you say to me, look, in 1 week's time you have a fight, you have to, if you win it, you keep your life. If you lose it, you die. I haven't built my bravery to that level, to be honest with you, bro. I might panic. Something might happen. If it happens in the street, someone's and that is different. But if someone's telling you you're going to have a war with a sword and you got the guy, he's very skilled with the sword, if you lose, you die. This was the level of shaja'ah that the Sahaba had. And they would continually, they put themselves in harm's way, continually. That's a level that I can never reach. When I look at people like Ali ibn Abi Talib and Umar ibn Khattab and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where even the people were running away at one point, they were running and he was fighting still in a war, like with swords and its close proximity. When you really think about what that means, how must he have felt when this is all happening? Because Castellato, what's his name? Castellato, Mike Tyson's trainer, he said something very powerful. He said the difference between the coward and the coward and the brave man is not that one of them feels fear and the other one doesn't. He said that it's both of them feel fear, but one of them is the one who acts in his state of fear, whereas the other one doesn't act. He fails to act. So I sometimes I think to myself, if I was in their times, I'll probably be I could be a coward on their standards. It's a fitna for me to imagine that level of stuff, of fighting and this and that. So bravery, therefore, is of levels. What I'm saying is that, for example, we have the Prophet, and we have the highest level of bravery. Like, you imagine you're fighting because it's in the Quran. It's saying that the Prophet was calling them from behind them, and that he was fighting in front. Like, this is so deep, because when I thought about that, I thought that means that they were retreating tactically, let's say, or whatever way, and the Prophet was still there fighting, calling them back, which means he was putting his life on the line in front of so many people. This is such a level, which means that there was so many guys that could come and kill him because he could be surrounded. Yani, this is such a level. It's so hard to imagine, yani, someone being that brave.
Yeah, it's a bravery that comes with iman. Because when you have that kind of iman and yaqeen in the akhirah and the promise of Allah, then that gives you the bravery that you need to stand.
But I think it's, do you know this hadith, إنما العلم والتعلم والحلم والتحلم, and there's even الصبر بالتصبر. It's like, you know, if you want to learn, you have to practice learning. If you want to learn knowledge, if you want to be forbearing, you have to practice that. If you want to be patient, you have to practice patience. I think bravery is the same thing in the sense that there is the abstract, which is if you have Allah, belief in Allah and the Messenger and the, you know, the hereafter, but then there is the activating your sympathetic nervous system. There is actually putting yourself in a situation where it's fight or flight, and your pupils are dilating, and your glands, your sweat glands are activated, and your heart is racing. And in that situation where all of that is happening, can you control your anxiety? Can you still do what is required? And I think that it's very difficult for someone to reach that level unless they build it up. Like, for example, if you take me now to somewhere where there's I actually watched what's his name, Anthony Joshua, the ex heavyweight champion, yeah, a boxer, and he you know, he's brave, because to be honest, it takes a level of bravery to go in the middle of the ring and fight in front of millions of people. So from one perspective, he's brave. But I saw him one time rock climbing. You know, they took him to a mountain and he was rock climbing, and he was scared, and you can see he was scared. And his friend, who's like a very small man, you know, he was doing it with great ease and you know, comfort. And the reason why is because he's put himself in that position so many times before. It's mumarasa. He's tried it so many times before. He's practiced bravery in that context. It's context specific, and because of that, his threshold for it has reduced. I think the same thing is very applicable for men. That we need to put ourselves in a situation where it is scary, and we need to see if we can act in a positive way or not. And that's why I think martial arts is one of the best ways you can do it. Actually, it is the best. I think it's the best way a modern person can do it, through martial arts, through do grappling, a bit of striking and stuff, but also things like swimming in the cold water in the deep sea, going to a place, you know, doing things like that. It's like where you're actually scared, you know, where it's scary to do it, to do it. Even doing things which are like other sports, which are not necessarily thing like football. You know, it can be scary if you're doing it in front of an audience. Public speaking can be very scary for many people. You have to put yourself debating, disagreeing, even as simply as disagreeing. You have to get yourself used to disagreeing with people. So I think it's a lot of it is to do with the practice of, you have to kind of build it up as well. And that's why when you were asking about men and women, women should be brave as well, but they don't need that level of bravery that men need it. Men need way more bravery to fulfill their functions than women do to fulfill theirs. And so we should have more bravery than women. That's basically what I'm saying, is that a man should have more bravery than women, should have more generosity than a woman, generally speaking. Why? Because it's him that has to do all these things. It's him that has to provide for the family. It's him that has to do, that's what makes him special, in a sense, makes him a man. You know, so that's how I see it.
Yeah,
but Allah,
I think this bravery and this willing to go against the grain, I think that actually does relate back to Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate is someone who is an anti-establishment, and he's been rejected by the establishment, but he still had a lot of popularity and a lot of success in calling to people to whatever he's been calling them to. And recently he has been calling people to Islam, alhamdulillah. So do you think that this, you know, because there's two models, I think, within the Muslim community leadership within the West. The majority position has basically been one of, we have to cater to the establishment and we have to have a seat at the table with the establishment. And that's why we support certain politicians, Muslim, quote unquote, Muslim politicians, and we want to be represented in these kinds of arenas of power, and we want to be dignified and respected by the establishment. Whereas there's this other model of, no, we are major critics of the establishment, and actually we are constantly out of favor by the establishment, because in a way the establishment sees us as dissidents from that establishment. So I think that with Andrew Tate, like what was so subversive about his rise to prominence and his continued prominence as a Muslim is that he is he's showing that being anti-establishment can be wildly popular and wildly successful. I think that's why he's been canceled so severely, because the powers that be realize that this situation is out of control. He is threatening our power. We have to silence him as much as we can. So how does that inform our strategy as Muslims in the West and our approach, because I think the dominant model, as I said, was this kind of catering to the establishment, getting our foot in the doors of power through Muslim politicians and Muslim academics and journalists and so forth. I think that's a failed model, personally, because it leads to watering the deen down, compromising in things that cannot be compromised, even leading to kufr, where you have figures who are actually getting into kufr, imams who are getting into kufr and shirk because they're trying so hard to conform to the standards of the establishment. I think that's a completely failed model. It's failed not only in terms of Islamic standards, but even in terms of dunya. Even in terms of dunya, they are not achieving the popularity and mainstream appeal that an anti-establishment figure like Andrew Tate is able to achieve. So does that represent a shift in our dawah and how we should approach how we're calling to Islam?
I think, look, I mean, it's a difficult one. So, in terms of politics and stuff, like we have to ask ourselves, what kind of engagement are we talking about? So, if we're talking about actual putting like MPs or senators or like House of, representative people in the House of Representatives, for example, yani, that's one thing you can do. Whether it's haram or halal, I personally believe it's halal. I don't think it's haram, based on what Ibn Taymiyyah said when he was talking about what do you call it? Yusuf alayhi salam being, in the establishment and so on. I don't think it's kufr. I don't think it's kufr akbar. I think, the way Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned it is wattaqullah mastata'tum in the Quran and stuff like that. So I don't think it's kufr. However, implementation wise, like we have people like Ilhan Omar and others who I doubt they're Islam. Just to put it in a word, I don't know if they're Muslim or not. I'd have to look at all of their statements. Maybe they're Muslim, maybe they're not Muslim. And it didn't start off like that. It started off as a, you're coming in to help the community, and you're trying to help the people, and now you put yourself in a position where even your Islam, whether you're a Muslim or not, is in question. This is the level of deviance it's caused. So, in terms of different models of how to leverage the political establishment, whether to be anti-establishment, like in a way, Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King strategies, I don't know, something like that. It can be very, very beneficial. Depends on who's doing it and how it's being done. If we're talking about leveraging the political establishment using voting, once again, I don't think it's shirk or kufr or something. That's not my view. If it sometimes makes more sense if someone believes that's allowed, for someone to do that with pre-existing people, than to create something yourself. Sometimes it cannot make that sense. So I do believe it depends on the situation. I believe it's a matter of maslaha and mafsada. It's a matter of pros and cons, basically interest versus detriments. And I think in each situation we can look at it. Like, for example, in the American model, there has not been clear proof of concept, as you want to put it like that, unfortunately. In fact, most of the muhawalat, the attempts, have been very, very negative. In the case of Ilhan Omar and this Linda Sarsour and others like her, who we don't know if they're Muslim or not. Basically, this is the status that they have now put for themselves, because they are compromising at a level which is unreal, it's uncanny, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable. So, we have to look at each situation. Being anti-establishment in the purest sense, we have to look at the detriments of that as well, because look at Andrew Tate. He has been deplatformed, and I think that's a detriment. For example, we have to look at how to keep within a particular structure or be influential within it, maybe create our own, because for us to have if me and you were to come off YouTube, for example, like Andrew Tate was, it would create a great detriment. It would create, we would not be able to be as active or reach as many people. So we have to look at these things kind of closely and
what if the situation escalates, like the liberalism escalates to such a degree that we cannot be on a platform like YouTube unless we announce that we celebrate LGBT, or we celebrate, this kind of liberal identity politics and feminism and so forth? Then we have no choice in that case, right?
Yeah, I mean, if obviously now, then YouTube becomes obsolete as a platform. I think if that happens, if YouTube starts doing something like that, then people wouldn't even want to be on YouTube anymore. I think YouTube, by doing something like that, would actually shoot itself in the foot, like, because people would say this is
That's what I think happened with Andrew Tate. I think they shot themselves in the foot. I don't
Yeah, I
think
think
that
so.
I don't think that Andrew Tate said something that literally violated their terms of service.
Exactly. Yeah.
He said things that they consider misogynistic, but it can be read in many ways. So I don't think Andrew Tate would be as popular if he catered to the standard definition of misogyny and he stopped talking about those issues. I think his popularity would be nowhere close to where it is if he compromised. And that tells myself that tells me that, look, on certain things it's not even worth compromising because you have
But
undermined
the
your own
reason to
message.
Andrew Tate's appeal, I think a lot of it as well is that he's got. Remember, he's a former world champion in kickboxing, so people know he can fight, and he can speak very well. Like when I didn't really watch too many of his videos before, but when I was sitting with him and he started speaking and stuff like that, to be honest with you, I think he's got eloquence. Like, I know it's a strong word to use, but I think he's quite eloquent because he's able to summarize very complex ideas in everyday language, and he does it with a good flow, with good fluency. So someone who can fight and can talk and looks the part, if you put those three things together, most men want to. That's exactly what all men want to be like. You know, you're a brave man, you're a strong man, you can talk very well. This is and you know, and you've got all these other dunyawi stuff which we don't necessarily rate him for. To be honest with you, whether you make a lot of money or not, it's not a standard for us. But these three things in particular, most men, if you put those three things together, are going to want to be like that. And that's why, for example, in the Attitude Era in WWE, who were the most successful wrestlers? You had Stone Cold Steve Austin, you had The Rock, before him you had Hulk Hogan. Imagine if the WWE it consisted of people that just spoke in a kind way. It wouldn't work, actually. The point is that you need to be coming and saying things in a certain way, and I feel like he had the persona which was just about right to be famous. He could have made it into Hollywood if he wanted to, Andrew Tate. So, he's just got that persona. He's got that charisma, and he's got that eloquence, and he's known to be a fighter. And I think that concoction has made him what he is. Not necessarily just because he's being outrageous. To be honest with you, I think he could have still been. He could have still been, what do you call it? Very famous and very popular without being outlandish or a maverick or something. To be fair,
I think he'd be less so.
Yeah, less so.
He'd
Yeah,
be far less so.
so.
I think he's just his eloquence is, it's the substance that he brings to the conversation and the kinds of topics that he addresses that
he speaks truth as well, and it's a truth that no one wants to address.
Exactly. I mean, that's the anti-establishment component of it.
Yeah,
that he's speaking the truth that the establishment won't allow you to address, even though they have the claims that, we allow free speech and this is a free society, free thought is promoted, ask questions. But we see with the canceling of Andrew Tate on these social media platforms that no, actually certain lines are there that you cannot cross. So I think that I tend to be more anti-establishment, and therefore someone like Andrew Tate having success while being canceled, that shows that gives me optimism, to put it lightly. So
alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, no, it's good that he's part of Islam, man. He's great. He's a great person. He's a great person in person as well. Like when I sat with him and stuff, he felt like one of the lads, man. He felt like a normal guy, to be honest. Some people think that he paid me or I paid him or something like that. There was no money involved in the podcast like that. He was just happy to be there, and he seemed like a very genuine, authentic guy, to be honest with you. Like a normal guy, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, which it seems like what you see is what you get with him.
He
doesn't have two faces. Okay, so let's get into a couple of more rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite proof for the existence of God? That's a joke. We know. What's your favorite proof?
The contingency argument.
Yeah. Okay. So what is who is your favorite philosopher or thinker? Give me Muslim or non-Muslim.
Do you know what? Yeah, I know it's going to sound very controversial, but I think Avicenna, like Ibn Sina, obviously, you can consider him a non-Muslim.
You're driving the madkha. He's crazy. You're driving everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I consider him, like, let's say, consider him a non-Muslim, no problem. But I think he was a genius. When I read his books and stuff, I was thinking this guy's a genius on another level. So to be fair, I think he was probably the biggest genius that we had in that time. Like he wrote that what is it, Qanun al-Tibbi, the canon of medicine that they were using for a very long time. And he wrote obviously the Shifa and the Ilahiyat and stuff like that, and that where he talks about God and the existence of God. All of it deviant stuff, no problem. But if you can pick out the good stuff in it, it's pretty very robust, I think. And I think the guy was a genius. If you look at his, by the way, if you look at his biography, yeah, he was a bit of a party guy. You know that, like he would,
really?
he'd drink alcohol and stuff. Yeah, he would, he would go, and he was a bit of a fasiq, like if you would put it that way. I think what it was with him is that because he thought so hard,
yeah,
he was known as a party animal. So he'd go and drink alcohol. He'd go to the masjid, and then go drink alcohol at night, and then eat food, this and that. Had a lot of. It was said that he had a lot of sexual partners, and he actually died. Some say that he died because he contracted a disease,
syphilis or something,
like a sexual disease. Yeah, but
I didn't know all these details because I thought he was worse than a fasiq. I thought he was straight, zindiq. So you're actually adding color. Yeah, he's worse than that. So okay, well, that's a very interesting choice. I didn't expect that. So here's a rapid fire question for you. Controversial question. The Muslim marriage crisis. You acknowledge that there's a crisis?
Yeah, I think yes, there is.
Okay.
Especially in the West.
Especially in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think is more at fault, men or women? And you can't say both.
Women.
Okay.
I think the reason why is because I feel like women we know that women are more hypergamous in nature. We know that they're picky, and maybe they should be. But I think that at the end of the day, they're becoming more and more picky. Now, the reason why I say that is that I've been looking at this data from like Muslim apps, dating apps and stuff like that, and I've been looking more and more into it. And it's the like and dislike, swipe right, swipe left, I don't know what it is, ratio is so much in favor of women. Like so they would like less and they will be engaging less. And I think the reason why is because the standards of living in the West are quite high, actually. And I feel like women feel like I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle with this guy, whoever it is, the guy that comes along. And what I feel like is going to happen now is that Muslim men are going to go abroad and get married. It's going to get to the level where there's going to be a phenomenon of Muslim men going abroad, getting married. And polygamy is going to increase because a lot of women are going to be like above a certain age with kids and stuff like that. And these two things are going to happen. And women are going to find it harder and harder to get married because of this not wanting to settle and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good result, actually. I'm more pessimistic. I think that men are just not going to get married. Women are not going to get married. They're just going to be alone. Like there's going to be a large percentage of the population. Already that's the case, but it's just going to get worse. Even with non-Muslims, you have like 40% who are like incel, like involuntarily celibate. They can't find a partner. Forget about marriage. Yeah. Even with dating, because you're referring to it actually with the swiping right. So they'll go on these apps like Tinder or whatever, and they will swipe. The men will swipe right for every single female profile, and they will not match. They won't match at all.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. So the women do match up. So this is Tinder. These apps